welcome to the first programming challenge. My name is Dylan, and I will be guiding you through the solution. Before we get started, make sure that you come over to github.com/tccstemcenter and click on the Spring 2018 repository. You can either bookmark this website in your web browser, or if you're a member of GitHub, you can click watch, and every time I post a challenge, you'll get a notification, or you could just start it so you can refer to it later. Let's go to Programming Challenge 1 and look at what the challenge was. So, challenge is to create a program that, when run, displays a random joke on the screen. In this video, I'm only going to be covering the beginner challenge because the expert challenge will require a little bit more time, and that'll be too long for this video. So I'm just going to be covering the beginner challenge, and then in the next video, I'll be covering how to write a small little web parser to parse a website that contains some jokes and print that out to the website. So that should be pretty fun, so stick around for that. In order to solve the beginner challenge, I'm going to be using REPL.it, which is a little online REPL or online programming environment. And I'm going to be using Python 3 to solve the challenge. If you're following along at home, you can come to this same exact website. It's just REPL.it, and click on Python 3 as I'm doing. And I'm going to change some settings here to make it a little bit easier for everybody following along to see. And then I'm going to increase the font size a little bit. So now that we've pulled up REPL.it, we have a little REPL down here where we can actually type valid Python code. And we also have our main.py file, which we can put code in there and run it, and then we can also change it and rerun it. Whereas in the REPL, we have to actually type it in every time, so it's a little bit more useful to use the main.py file up here, or if you're opening it up for the first time, it's on the left-hand side and the REPL's on the right-hand side. So now let's go ahead and get started with the first programming challenge. I'm going to make a doc string because doc strings allow other people to see what your program does, and it also reminds you what your program does if you look at it a couple years later on. So I'm going to just copy and paste this into the doc string and format it a little bit better. So just gonna say this program displays a random joke to standard out. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So let's think about what we need to do. The first thing that we're going to need to do is have some place where we have a bunch of jokes, and the way to do that, well, the easiest way to do that is to create a list. So I'm going to just make an arbitrary name here called jokes and assign that to an empty list. So what I've done is create this variable called jokes, use the assignment operator to assign it to it. In this case, just an empty list, and we're going to add stuff inside of the list so that we have some jokes. I'm going to split it up onto multiple lines here so it's easier to read. And now I'm going to add the first joke. So I'm going to add a string inside of this list, and I'm just going to use, let me think of the first joke that comes to my head. Why did the turtle cross the road? So, sorry, not the best joke, but why did the turtle cross the road? Obviously the answer is to get to the other side. And now we can go ahead and actually print the entire object just to make sure that Python and I are on the same page. So if we click run, we get the entire list. So we actually get the opening square bracket and we get the string, and you see that's a single quote. That's just because single quotes and double quotes in Python are completely interchangeable. So that works, and now let's try accessing the first element. So we have jokes sub 0 now, or jokes, we're accessing the 0th index, which is the first element, because remember, lists in Python and most programming languages start at 0. So now we have the first joke that we've put in there, and in order to make this a little bit more useful, we need to add some more jokes. I'm just going to search for funny jokes on DuckDuckGo here. Feel free to search wherever you want to, like on Google. And since we've already used a cross the road joke, I'm just going to use another across the road joke, I guess. Let's see. Why did the fat turkey cross the road? To get hit by my car. A little bit better than the first one, but almost as bad, to be honest. Alright, so now we have our second joke. Why did the fat turkey cross the road? And we can access that with joke sub 1. When we run that, we're just going to get the second joke, or the first index, I guess. And now we need to figure out how we're going to access a random joke. If you recall from the tutorials earlier on in this series, then you'll remember that randint is a function from the random module package that comes built in with Python. So quickly, if we jump over to docs.python.org/3.4, because you should be using Python 3, and then we search for random, that'll bring us to the random module. And if we scroll down and look at randint, it tells us that it returns a random integer in such that it is between a and b and inclusive of both of the boundaries. So we pass this function two numbers, and then it returns a random number between a and b, and also inclusive of both of those bounds. So just note that this should not be used for security or cryptography, because the random module that comes built in with Python isn't cryptographically secure. It's pretty breakable, and the numbers aren't truly even close to random. So just don't use it for security, but for our purposes, it's going to work very well because it's going to generate a seemingly random number. So let's go back to our program here, and we're going to need to import the randint function from the random module. Excuse me. So in order to do that, I'm going to use the concise method of from random import randint. And now we're going to be able to use the randint function because we imported it from the random module. So what do we need to do here? We need to access a random integer inside of jokes. So instead of calling either 0 or 1 inside the index thing here, I'm going to use the function randint. And if you recall from the tutorial series, we need to go from 0 to the length of the list. In this case, the list is called jokes -1 because we start counting at 0. So we need to subtract 1 from the length to make sure that we're always getting a valid range for jokes. And now, when we run this, we should get either one of these two jokes. Why did the fat turkey and why did the turtle? So feel free to add more jokes into here and to customize it as you want to. The last thing that I'm going to do is replace this hyphen here with a Newline character to make it be on a new line. So you can see that REPL.it here has actually highlighted as a blue instead of a green. And what that means is a special token. When we run this, now we get the question on the first line and the answer on the second line. And I'm going to format this a little bit better with a tab character. This is going to shift the second line over to the right a little bit. And finally, I'm just going to add a little right angle bracket just because it's an answer and it just is a little special syntax to denote that that's the answer. So we get why did the fat turkey cross the road, new line, tab, right angle bracket, and a space, and then the actual answer. And we could add as many jokes as we want to here with our little syntax, another question, another answer, and every once in a while we're gonna get that last one, but we'll have a 1 in 3 chance of getting it essentially. So just quickly, I'm gonna note that because, so you see how we have the backslash and the backslash t, the backslash is actually a special character in Python. If you want to use a raw backslash, just make sure that you have 2 backslashes. So if I just have 1 backslash, this backslash is actually escaping the quotes and telling Python that this second quote here should be a literal quote. And so Python is going to get really confused here because it doesn't see the ending quote, because this is an opening quote and this is a literal quote character. And so you can escape a quote like this, and that'll print a actual single, or print a literal double quote. Or if you want to print a literal backslash, you have to escape the backslash first. So that's how you print a literal backslash. So just remember that backslashes are special characters, and they do things like if you put an N after it, then you get a new line character because you escape the N, or if you escape a T, then you get a tab character. That's all I wanted to cover in this video, and in the next video I'll be covering how to create a small little web parser to parse a website that contains some jokes and print a random joke from that website. So that should be pretty fun, and we're going to go pretty deep into Python. Not too deep, but it's a fairly complex program, and so that should be fun, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.